Hello and welcome to Azur Lane Meta. If after this video you want to help support the channel, please check out my affiliate store at kit.co/AzurLaneMeta. So in this video today, we are going to show the strongest backline main fleet in the game currently. Of course, it's going to be that Floof meta, and how can we be a Floof meta without Nagato? Of course, so we're going to have Nagato and Shinano. Nagato buffs Shinano, which is nice, and this is what are the two best backliners currently in the game. Now, for the third slot, there are two options that are well above every other combination in the game. And currently, the one I'm about to show you is the best one. In a little bit, if you have the carrier mechanic that we get from Operation Siren, which if you haven't seen my video on that already, go watch that right now. But when that does release, this will be different, but for now, this is the best fleet. Nagato, Amagi, and Shinano make up the Floof meta backline, and there is nothing stronger. Head-to-head against Nagato, Amagi, Hiru, or Nagato, Hiru, Shinano, this fleet will beat them head-to-head very strongly. Now, Nagato, Hiru, Shinano is the most consistent fleet, where they will get the most wins against every other fleet over the course of the season. I've tested this, but head-to-head, this fleet is better. So this is a stronger powerhouse fleet. Now, once again, this is before we get the new carrier mechanic. We'll have to test this again afterward. But before the case, if we go head-to-head, and I really hope during this season we do get to see a few battles here recorded, but head-to-head, this does better. And over the course of the season, it definitely proved to be very, very strong. Of course, in the front, we have Yukikaze, and we have to add in our Juno, because with the new equipment, I haven't had a video with the new equipment tested out yet, and I'll just tell you guys right now, it's amazing, but you guys get to see it in action as well. With the new equipment, we're going to put her in front. And for the third slot, this is not the meta version, but I actually just realized that I haven't had her be on any of my PvP battles on a recorded session, and I wanted to test her out because she is a tier 1 ship. The best in slot here would be Azuma or Noshiru, but since I've never used Susutsuki in PvP on this channel, and we want to test her out. She's really good. She has that 3-second smoke screen, which is nice. She's got 2 main gun shots. She's got a main gun +1. And overall, she's going to be really good in anti-torp. This Vanguard here is major anti-torp Vanguard. Now, anti-torp is becoming less important now because the torp meta is less strong here in recent seasons. But this is a classic anti-torp lineup. Your opponent's torpedo fleet is not going to do anything here. This is going to be a nightmare for them to deal with, so we basically get to auto win against heavy torpedo front lines here, and then we have the strongest back line. So I'm pretty confident we won't have to reset at all during this whole rush, but we'll get into it. Right before we get into it, though, let's go and take a look at the equipments. We got a 457 on Nagato. I only have one, but it goes on Nagato because she's got that 3-shot, and it's just, she's very powerful. We put the auxiliary gun standard Boffer stag because she needs a hit stat. We put the white shell, and this is something that I'd like to just point out here is a lot of people are trying to use the Nelson's Pennant here, and you lose a little bit of firepower, you gain a little bit of extra hit, but really one of the big issues here is you lose 25% damage on that crit, which is very important. And in exchange, you're going to be giving your Vanguard a little bit extra health. I don't think health for this Vanguard is really going to be a big issue. And so for this particular fleet, I believe the white shell is better. I think most fleets in PvP are going to prefer the white shell because those crits are going to be critical. See what I did there? But I think that a lot of people like the Nelson's Pennant. If you don't have a white shell, Nelson's Pennant is pretty good as well. It's a unique unit, and I'll probably be using it in other ways. Now we'll get on to one of my favorite equips, the Washington Naval Treaty. This is only going to work if you put it on the flagship, which Nagato obviously is because of her skill. and it basically is an extra evasion version of an SG radar, and then it decreases damage by 15% for both sides, which is kind of nice in slowing up the battles and just allowing your slower ships to get their high damage. Very important for if you're using Shinano, who is pretty slow and has a ton of damage. I mean, she shouldn't be having too much of an issue, but that extra 15% is pretty nice. Not necessarily the best thing for a rush, but it definitely is extremely powerful. Moving on to Shinano, we go with one of my favorite setups for her, which is the Swordfish to slow up the units, and then have the Ryusei to target them. So you have 2 planes for the slowing that come out, and then you have 4 planes for the Ryusei that come out, plus the 5th if you count the barrage. And so this, it allows you to target a lot of torpedoes into a slowed target. I think that's very important. Targeting torpedoes can miss, and they can also target things that are invincible. Those are big issues with them. But one of the things that's really nice is if you can slow down your targets, and then you just get so much targeting damage into that. That's great. We go with the Helldiver, still the best slot for the dive bomber. It helps with AoE, which helps mitigate some of the loss that you might get from losing out on those homing torpedoes if they miss. And instead of going to any aviation, we're trying to make our Shinano live longer. That's part of the 15% buff. That's part of the Amagi skill for evasion. And right now, she is going to have, with these 2 equips, she's going to have an extra 75 evasion, which gives her well over 100 evasion, 126 evasion, and that's like light cruiser range. She's going to be dodging things like crazy with her heavy armor and her over 9k health pool. Not even Warspite snipes scare her. She is very bulky, probably the second bulkiest ship in the whole game at the moment. And this is my favorite setup, just not letting her die. We don't really have a hero to defend us from being insta-killed, but she is taking that slot by just being so bulky. Yes, she doesn't have any invincibility per se, but she is so thick it won't matter. Amagi is a big component of that extra survivability of Shinano, giving her 10% evasion, and that is super helpful here. I don't have a second 457, so we are going to put on the barrage gun here. We're putting the more powerful barrage gun that's a little bit slower because we do have the naval treaty on Nagato, so the extra second that we get from the faster barrage gun doesn't really matter. Amagi's going to be able to tank some things, and so let's put some more damage on her. Amagi's going to get the main gun HE ammo because she fires first before Nagato, which means that she can set things on fire with her barrage, and then we can re-up that fire with our Vanguard procs. So one of the things is we're going to put the HE on her. Then we're going to put the AP and the auxiliary slot just for hedging on Nagato and the Boffer stag that is standard. Then we're going for evasion for her. So we're going to have over 83 evasion, which is pretty good. I think it starts to kind of have diminishing returns a little bit over 100, but it's still pretty good. Amagi is going to be dodging a lot of things. She also has her 10% boost, remind you, and her other debuff. And then we're going to put the VH armor on her. This is an interesting choice, I think. I think you could go with a lot of other options, but this is kind of a really fun defensive thing because it turns her into heavy armor, which means my whole backline here is heavy armor. Heavy armor is fantastic against any sort of shelling damage, and so the shelling damage, this is mitigating a ton of it. So this is a great fleet for going against triple backlines because you have Shinano that can target into a single battleship and basically delete them on a spot, and then you have a full heavy backline that also has very high evasion, and so you're really not going to be taking damage from shells in this backline. Now, carriers, on the other hand, we have a little bit of low AA, but we will hope that the Vanguard will help us out there. So first of all, we're going to start off with Juno. She's kind of our AA queen here, and pretty standard, but the only new thing is this thing. This thing is very awesome. It's like, basically, we get some AA stat for bonus. It's like a repair toolkit, and 8 seconds for her not to die is fantastic. We put her in the front. We hope she dies really quickly, gives her 8 seconds of invincibility to soak up all that damage, and then she heals everybody 25%. This is fantastic. Moving to Yukikaze, nothing's changed about her build, so I won't talk too much about her, but this is best build. And then we move on to Suzuki. We're playing a survival build. We could play a more torpedo focused build in which we would play the quad, and then we'd replace this 4 gods to put in a black auxiliary torpedo. Right now we're going with her to try and survive with an extra 1050 HP. She's got the pearl tiers because hopefully she's dying first, although because we have a torpedo on Yukikaze instead of the fire control radar, Yukikaze sometimes dies a little bit quicker, but for the most part Suzuki is dying second. Obviously we're playing a lot to do anti-torps, so this is going to be pretty nice. We put that anti-torp bulge also in the beginning of Juno, so this is Torpedo Vanguard Nightmare. We put the firepower AA gun on her because, oh, why not? She actually does most of her damage through firepower. We obviously put that HE ammo on her as well, hoping that main gun +1 will help us re-up those Amagi fires that we're starting, and then just standard quad homing torpedoes because I don't have 2 rainbow homing torpedoes. So that is the lineup today right here. This is what we're going to be using. I loved it. I've used it all week and it's been fantastic. And yeah, I mean, honestly, this is probably one of the best. If you switch out Suzuki for a Dev 30 Azuma, that's probably the best build that you can currently make at the moment until we get a new update. Have you ever wondered how I get my game footage for Azur Lane? Well, I use my computer and BlueStacks. BlueStacks is an Android emulator for PC, and it allows you to play mobile games like Azur Lane on your computer. If you're interested in an Android emulator, there are referral download links in the description under affiliates. Alright, thanks to your feedback, we're going to be changing up things a little bit here. I'm going to be skipping the fleets that are non-viable, and we're going to be 2-timesing all the battles, just so that this video doesn't drag as long as normal. That's some of the feedback you guys have given me, that you want it to be a little bit shorter on these rushes instead of authentic. However, here, we are keeping the HMS fleet because this is literally the only HMS viable fleet I could find during my rush, and I just didn't want somebody to be like, hey, where's HMS? Well, here is HMS, and they're getting pounded. HMS is really not a super viable fleet in PvP right now, but there's an example. Obviously, they weren't using Warspite, they were using the carrier version, but that's kind of going to be the version we need later. Next up, we have Namagiru with a Torpedo Vanguard. This is old meta. This is like used to be, basically this dominated the meta for a very long time, but we have an anti-torp Vanguard, but it doesn't matter when they just miss all their torps. And then they have light armor, so we have HE to take care of them. Their Vanguard should be, yeah, we are just shrekking them. This is basically a fleet we are built to destroy. This is the new meta, destroying the old meta. Hiru, even though does have a 15-second proc here, is not going to matter. She's not going to have enough damage to basically beat out our backline tanks and consistently, and so we just have to wait her out, and that's fine. We are overpowered the Hiru, so we just have to wait out the 15 seconds, and we did that fine. Next up, we have a triple carrier fleet. Not necessarily what I call meta right now, but the US carriers kind of get a lot stronger when they are able to be hidden with the new hidden carrier mechanics. So this fleet is going to see a buff here where we won't be able to target Essex like we did there. We'll have to actually target the Vanguard. I don't actually see that being a huge problem. I think that we will still be able to beat the fleet because of how quickly we get our strikes off and we can kill their Vanguard, and we would have gotten to the backline and revealed them, and Shinano would have revealed them. So it really comes down to if they could maybe launch early and use the hidden carrier mechanic extra damage buff, which I don't know what it is currently, but that's just there. Next up, we have a Namagiru again, but this has a more conservative Vanguard that's playing more defensive with Juno and Belfast, so we aren't going to just shrek it because of all of its light armor. I mean, both those ships have light armor, but they're a little bit more defensive because of their skills, and they're not going for torpedo memes, so it will be a little bit more difficult for us. But you can see here that we're not having too much problems against the defensive Vanguard, or more of a mid-tier balanced Vanguard, if I really think about it. We did proc that Hiru, which is kind of nice, and now we're just waiting for Hiru again. Suzuki survived to the end, so our Vanguard is not optimized really yet because Yukikaze should be surviving to the end, or at least we should be moving the pearl tiers to that. So our main fleet is best in slot, but we got to work on the Vanguard a little bit. Here we're going to be testing out Warspite. Warspite used to be the meta for sniping, and she's kind of dying out. She will die out even more when we get into the hidden carrier mechanic. There we see a Magia Barrage completely miss and a Warspite take off literally like 10% of the health. and then a Nagato barrage, and we're at 25% damage Shinano took, and then Juno just heals it all the way back up to full health. This is why Warspite is kind of dying already. You can just tank them with some of the newer ships, and once we have hidden carrier mechanics, that Warspite won't even be able to target the Shinano. He would have to target something else, and so Warspite is dying in the meta and will probably die when the new hidden carrier mechanic does come out eventually. And so yeah, I don't know, she's been such a big part of the meta and being able to snipe problematic ships. She was a counter to Hiru, and now she's kind of just been outpowered. Nagato Shinano Hiru, what we like to call Shinanaru, is what I think will be the new best main fleet once the new update with the hidden carrier mechanics comes out. But right now, the fleet that I'm running, the main fleet I'm running, is more powerful. He's running a more powerful Vanguard fleet with the Azuma and whatnot, but I wanted to play around with Suzutsuki, so I think we'll be fine. Maybe we'll have to take a few shots. Oh, we've actually killed it. We're just left with a Yukikaze. Our Vanguard's basically tied there, although that's kind of a loss being on the offensive side here. But the point is, here we have Shinano versus Hiru, and Shinano goes into an invincible. Hiru doesn't do anything, but we tank the hit from Hiru, and then Shinano launches again, and we are able to take it. So we are able to beat that fleet, and that's consistently what I've done all season. Now, once they get the hidden carrier mechanic, that fleet is going to be more powerful because they're going to be able to launch more powerful airstrikes and have 2 carriers hidden, meaning you can force people to attack your Nagato. Here we're playing in the Magi-Ru again, and we're playing with a pretty standard Vanguard, so this is once again one of the most conservative meta of the past, but it's still pretty good. Like, this fleet that they're using will get you to Admiral Navy as we speak right now. The Azuma, very powerful. Like, they're playing the old meta, basically just add Shinano and they'd have pretty close meta to the new meta. But here, once again, Hiru's not really causing us problems. We are going to have to wait that 15 seconds here. All of those converging torpedoes on an invincible Hiru is hilarious, but it doesn't really matter because nothing else is around. We have blown it out. Suzutsuki ends again. We need to make sure that she's not the last one dying, so I need to fix that a little bit. Here we got another Shinanaru again with a Juno Vanguard. We'll see if they use the new item. But this is going to be pretty good meta here. We'll have to see. We have here we hit Hiru. That won't be able to happen whenever we get the new Operation Siren update. And we move, and we've killed the Martyr. So once again, no new PvP item. Wow, getting lucky on these Junos not having those survival items on. The survival item has been very good for myself. Obviously, you can't really see. There's so much blur here, but we do have to proc the Pearl Tears with Suzutsuki dying once again last, and we have converging torpedoes on that Shinano on Shinano battle. Obviously, Magi still survived, but that will get us there to number one, and Admiral of the Navy for the season. So that's pretty good. This fleet was pretty easy cakewalk. I wouldn't rush with the Washington Naval Treaty again. It slows up the battles, but it is fun, it is powerful. This is the fleet that I used. All of the ships that are oathed are 200 affinity. It's pretty good. Once again, Suzutsuki probably should be switched out, but she did perfectly fine. She's definitely usable as an anti-torpedo weapon in PvP and is a fantastic firepower weapon. So that's the fleet, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would ask you to please consider subscribing to the channel. My upload schedule is not always consistent, and if you want to get notified of when new stuff does release, that's the best way to get notified.